Welcome to the Humans of Hospitality podcast with me, Mark Cribb. So this is the week where Rishi has given much of our industry a further lifeline by extending the furlough scheme through to October. And though we wait nervously for the details of the joint funding he mentioned from August onwards and whether our sector may qualify for further support once the scheme is removed for much of the country, we shall just have to wait and see. Personally, I would love to see some flexibility in the scheme, being able to use team members part-time. The current fully off or fully on furlough approach is costing the government more than it needs to and making exploring ways of reopening our sector in some guise more challenging. By way of example, I've set up my hotel to offer a drive-through restaurant food collection service just a couple of evenings per week. And the opportunity for me to be able to pay a team member 2 days per week but furlough 3 days per week would be mutually beneficial to me and to the business and to the government in sharing the burden. If any of you have got any other thoughts on that or how you're managing to work in those sort of conditions, please do email me via mark@humansofhospitality.co.uk and I can share it with some of the key industry contacts. Now, today's guest is Rupert from Conker Spirit, which is a gin distiller down in Bournemouth. And I've seen a number of distilleries moving into the sanitiser market, and I really wanted to find out more about how and why. I think it demonstrates again the creative versatility of people in hospitality and is a great example of another pivot that we are all having to take to find a way to help our businesses navigate this crisis. Rupert and I chat about some of the technicalities of shifting from booze to sanitiser, such as how to get the HMRC on board so you don't have to pay £25 in duty per litre of sanitiser produced. And actually the speed that the HMRC moved on all that kind of stuff, I think reflects further positive efforts behind the scenes from the government to try and get the private sector to support the public sector as much as possible, through things like sanitiser as well as PPE and feeding our key workers. We also touch on the very crowded space of craft distillers and who will and will not survive this crisis, and what trade may look like on the other side, as well as a couple of other positive pivots Rupert has seen, such as sleep packs for nurses. I very much hope you enjoy our chat, and if you can support the podcast and help keep us on the air, please check out the tip jar via our Patreon page at humansofhospitality.co.uk/donate. Thank you. Rupert from Conker Gin, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Hugely appreciated. Before we get going, can I just ask, are you at home and are you and your family all safe and well?
Yeah, I'm in my bedroom, which I keep sort of, when I'm on my sort of phones to business calls, I keep saying, yeah, I'm in my bedroom. It just makes me sound like a 12-year-old running a gin company. It's quite funny.
That's become your home office, or that's just it's the quieter spot?
Yeah, it's become my home office and I'm fully dressed. I'm not in bed.
Okay, that's good to know. To be fair, I've spent a lot of time on Zoom calls with my FD over the last couple of months, and he refuses to have an office at home because he doesn't agree fundamentally with working from home, and therefore he is always on his bed when I have these calls with him, which has been certainly disconcerting for the first couple of weeks. I've kind of got used to it now.
Yeah,
Exactly. The new world that we're in. So you were one of the very first guests that I interviewed probably a year ago, I would imagine. So thank you for doing that. But for the people that don't know you, can you just explain, what's your role and what is Conker Gin, please, Rupert?
My role is, in fact, I founded Conker Spirit. So we are a gin distillery based down in Bournemouth. Founder and now sort of MD and sort of heading up the ship, I suppose. We've got a team of, lose track these days, a team of six, seven. We're at sort of what we call, what we like to kind of coin the kind of phrase of like genuine craft distillery. So we do everything from sort of start to finish and all in Southbourne and Dorset.
Amazing. And to give a sort of bit of a sort of indication of size, I suppose you supply directly to the hospitality industry, but also you're in some of the supermarkets, are you, or some of the national retailers at least?
Yeah. So we are 5 years old. We sell into the on-trade and the off-trade. So off-trade being independent wine shops, farm shops, but also we supply into Waitrose, Tesco's, M&S, and Ocado, and then on trade. When the pubs are open, we sell into bars, restaurants, hotels, across the country.
Amazing. And what's the sort of split? How much is into the on-trade and how much is into retail?
It's vaguely 50-50, I'd say.
Okay.
It's going to probably shift in future months, in future years, but that's the kind of, at the moment, that's the split.
That must be quite handy, particularly at the moment with the on-trade being completely shut down. It must be nice to have a retail arm to the business as well.
It is, although it's all been affected, I'd say. It's so while we have all this route to market in supermarkets, it's probably getting a bit better now, but certainly in the first 6 weeks of all this, we just weren't a priority. So in Tesco, our shelves were empty because obviously they just didn't have the staff to stock the luxury spirits aisle. They were too busy, filling the shelves with pasta and bread and stuff. So
toilet rolls.
It hasn't been. I did think initially when I was sort of in battle stations, I thought, well, the supermarkets will carry on because people are going to be stocking up, and they did, but the supermarkets didn't have the resource to place the orders or the probably inclination to place orders.
Yeah,
rightly so.
Okay.
I thought.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we get into sort of what you're doing now and the implications fully, if I can just get you to cast your mind back to mid-March, because I'm guessing gin is a summer drink. I know you have a tendency to do lots of outside events and festivals. So, what were things looking like then? Did you have a lot of outdoor things booked into the calendar for this summer? And how was trade? And were things pretty positive? And how were you getting ready pre-pandemic?
Yeah, I think we ended up having our best ever March, which was pretty amazing. And that was even with the latter half of March, all kicking off with the COVID stuff. We'd just moved over to Love Drinks, our distributor, which is something that I don't know whether I've told you about yet, Mark. But
no, I might take a little bit of credit for that, Rupert. That's exciting.
Yeah, that was through introduction. So Kirsty, she reached out to you, didn't she, to get hold of my details? So that's another conversation. But we're moving over to a distributor model. So we've basically got a team of professionals heading up our sales and distribution across the UK. So that kind of happened in late March, April. Our event side of things actually in huge strike of kind of sort of good planning, good fortune. I think we'd actually already wound back our events for this year a great deal. So in previous years, events have been a really significant part of what we do. And I made well before this happened, I made the decision that we would pull back a little bit from that and focus our attention on different things. Because it's it's really risky actually. And you sink a lot of time and costs into going to events and then just cross your fingers and hope that the sunshine. So we hadn't actually, paid in and booked for a load of events this year, which had then been cancelled. We had, I think, 2 London Coffee Festival we were going to go to, and maybe a few other ones. But generally, we haven't been too affected by the closure, all the events. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lucky because I've been to some of your events, thinking of sort of Christchurch Food Festival, where you have these huge marquees and great vibe and great energy. But were they predominantly then a sort of a brand awareness exercise rather than part of the revenue generating?
Yeah, completely. Oh, yeah. So all our events sort of wash their face in the year. So while we might do some bars that were quite profitable in terms of selling lots of G&Ts, we're also doing that same weekend. We're doing 2 other pop-up sort of brand events where we're not taking any money. So generally they wash their face. So the income from the bars paid for all the other stuff we were doing, free and giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Church Food Festival we were going to do, we just didn't get contacted by the organisers. I don't know what they're doing with that one. Obviously that didn't happen anyway. But yeah, that we were hanging on to, and we were definitely wanting to do the local ones. It got a bit out of hand. We've been so many events, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, what a stroke of good fortune that is then in many ways, that you didn't have all of that booked in. So from an impact of the coronavirus then, do you remember sort of when it became obvious, I suppose, that was going to have a significant impact on your business and the trade? Can you just talk us through that time period and what happened?
So obviously it was on everyone's radar for quite a few weeks, even before it was sort of in a European country. It was on the radar, and I was looking at that thinking, wow, okay, this could have significant impact. But you kind of just, I think it was probably just the way you think about business. You kind of crack on regardless. I think it was only until suddenly there was this kind of like rumor of pubs closing that the penny drops, and I thought, oh, wow, okay. And then that closure happened, and that was I literally remember thinking, right, well that means that we'll be putting 80% of the team onto furlough. We'll be just running off our website, and yeah, pretty drastic measures. I mean, to put it in perspective, we are currently at about 15% of normal trading, I would say. So it has basically it has all switched off.
Yeah, that's a huge impact, isn't it? I mean, as somebody sitting here with 0% revenue, well, until Friday actually, when we did a little bit, but that's more than I would have imagined. I would have hoped that the retail sort of part, would have kept
exactly.
going.
If it's a 50-50 split, you'd imagine there'd be a bit more. But so while and I'm not sure whether I've lost track of it, but the wine shops were allowed to reopen at one point, which was all a bit strange, but it was welcome. But not a lot of wine shops have actually done that. So. For example, the Jolly Vintner, which is a gym locally, I think he's doing just deliveries. So while he got the thumbs up to be open, he made the call not to. So, essentially, a lot more than 50% was turned off. It was, it's basically our website has done really well and has helped out a lot. So we've run a promotion. Constant sort of 20% promotion on all the products. We're also selling hand sanitizer through it, and that's ticked over. And I think that's more or less, bar a few orders, that's more or less our only income from the spirits side of things.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the primary reasons that I wanted to talk to you, I think I was reminded. I think I saw something on your Facebook page last week where there was just a sort of a mountain of plastic containers. So sanitizer. Where did this idea come from?
It's just been a dream
pivot into sanitizer.
Boy, and I've always wanted to run a hand sanitizer.
Excellent. I'm glad you just used Conker as a front just to give you this opportunity.
Distillery business was just a means to an end, really, to be able to make.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
Make alcohol taste disgusting and put it all over your hands.
Good. Well, thank you for the time, and we'll catch up again soon.
Well, to be honest, it's a bit crazy. So while the pubs were still open, so while you guys were still trading, but there was all this kind of it was getting pretty serious around COVID, and everyone was talking about keeping clean. And I think the hospitality industry was just sort of clinging on by its fingernails to kind of stay open. And so we got requests from bars and restaurants saying, can you guys make hand sanitizer so we can protect our staff and our customers? We were already sniffing around the idea by using our so part of the distillation process, we have what's called the heads of the spirit, which is the first part of the spirit to come off the still, which never ends up in the bottle. It's a kind of waste product essentially. So I think we had about 100 litres or so of this heads, high ethanol, high percentage ethanol, which we converted into a hand sanitizer and gave away to essentially all of our customers. We sent it out. So to all the wine shops, bars, restaurants, 70 ml bottle, and it was really well received, and it was just allowed bars and restaurants to have one on by their till, say, so that them and their customers could have a squirt and clean. And that just kicked off social media like like nobody's business, and actually got calls in from local radio stations and the local press, and it ended up getting so much sort of publicity that we ended up having calls from care homes, Dorset Police, the NHS saying, "Can you supply us?" Which point I sort of started thinking, well, not really, and we're not really set up, and we've run out of this waste as well. It was only a set amount. And then from then on in, it's gone to the post that you mentioned about mountains of jerry cans and stuff. So it all got a bit out of hand. to be honest.
Yeah, well, we'll see just out of hand in a minute. So I didn't. I was very grateful to receive your sanitizer. It was, as you said, exceptionally helpful in those last few days that we were clinging on for dear life. But all of our suppliers were out of stock. So thanks for doing that. However, I wasn't one of the people that automatically phoned you and thought, oh, I bet my local friendly gin distiller can make hand sanitizer. So when you say customers were calling you, this is presumably because they'd seen some publicity about it was possible. Because did you know that you could make hand sanitizer out of the heads of gin?
Yeah, so it'd been happening. Weirdly enough, I saw it first on an Instagram post for a distillery I follow in Canada, which because Conker's going off to Canada. It's I've been following some distilleries over there, just out of intrigue, and yeah, they'd started doing it. So the bell had sort of been rung, and I was thinking, oh, okay, this is possible, and we were looking into it, and then bartenders obviously follow other distilleries, and yeah, I think there was someone in Psychopomp, is it in Bristol, had started doing it as well. So yeah, by no means was it a kind of idea unique to us. It was something that I could see was being done amongst other distilleries. So yeah, and then I think the key turning point was us going into sort of proper production of, because now we're doing sort of 5 litre jerry cans out into care homes, also businesses that have closed. So I think people like Parcel Force, we've been providing hand sanitizer into the Royal Mail and Parcel Force. But that was quite a different leap. That was all around, it was all around licensing really. So converting our stocks of ethanol. So we had like 3,000 or 4,000 litres of ethanol, which hadn't yet been distilled into gin. And we just thought, well, let's convert that into hand sanitizer. The only problem is that its duty will be applicable. So essentially, for it works out because there's 28 pounds of duty on every litre of pure spirit, and hand sanitizer is 80%. So if you're doing a litre, it's going to be 25 pounds of just duty also in a litre of hand sanitizer before you even started to make it and add ingredients and all this kind of stuff. So it would have been prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. So did you just have to go to the HMRC then, did you, and say,
Yeah,
we're not making gin? And did they look at you really skeptically and say, yeah, right?
Everyone, all the distilleries were approaching the HMRC saying that we're sitting on all this ethanol, and there's a sort of national shortage of hand sanitizer. What can we do? So they sort of sent the form saying, here's your application to. They call it denaturing. So when you denature alcohol, that basically means you make it taste disgusting. So
right.
Denatured alcohol is not fit for human consumption. So think of things like methylated spirits and all this sort of stuff that tastes disgusting. That's been deliberately made to taste that way so that it can be used for. It won't have duty applied to it, essentially. So they made us apply, but then a few days later they didn't sort of. They basically relaxed all their laws to say that if you are a licensed distillery like we are, then you're automatically authorized to use your potable, so your ethanol, for the production of hand sanitizer.
That's pretty good, isn't it? Is that an indication of just how sort of fast the government were trying to respond to what was going on? Because I imagine that's the sort of thing in normal times would be a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're currently going through those hoops now, so we're kind of retrospectively applying, and we want permanent sort of license to do it, because at one point the government will revoke that easement of the law. It's great. I think it's a great example of quick thinking. I mean, dealing with the HMRC from a duty perspective is very challenging anyway. So the fact that they were able just to go, if you've got this license, you crack on, just let us know what you're doing. It meant that we could, to date, we've made, I would say, over 30,000 litres.
How does that compare with how much gin you would have made?
Yeah, it's a lot more. It's a lot more hand sanitizer than gin.
So when you said you use a waste product, the heads of it, that's not what you're doing
no,
anymore? You're not basically
no.
making shitloads of gin so that you've got plenty of waste. You've now changed the process.
Yeah, so now we are essentially not making gin, and we are making hand sanitizer from the ethanol. So when we make our gin, we buy in the ethanol and then we redistill it. So we don't go. We're not like a whiskey distiller that works from grain and makes a beer, and then that's the alcohol's taken from that. All gin distilleries work from buying in a high proof alcohol, which we then refine with botanicals. So we're just taking that base product, not running it through the stills, adding various ingredients and packaging it up, and off it goes.
Amazing, just like that. So is this now? You talked earlier about the fact you thought you were going to have to furlough 80% of your team and stuff like that. Does that mean that you haven't had to do so? Is this now running as a sort of commercial enterprise, basically?
Yeah. So it's got to the point where we want. We've actually brought in help on the bottling line just to get it into jerry cans. We kind of deduced through various conversations and speaking to customers, and basically 5 litre jerry cans into care homes, Dorset Police, postal service, that kind of thing. That's what they want, so they can take that 5 litre jerry can and then decant it into smaller containers. We looked into getting smaller containers, but because everyone's looking into getting smaller containers, they just didn't, they just don't exist. And so we just decided to be right. We'll make it in bulk, send it off to where it's needed, and they can put it into any container. It just sped the whole process up and made it really quick.
Amazing. So initially you were sending this stuff out for free to sort of the people that need it, but now you're actually, charging people for it. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So we do a bit of both. So we've got any organisation that was a charity or voluntary get approached a lot by a charity that visits people who need care, for example, and their budgets are absolutely minute, and so we would donate a 5 litre jerry can when on those kinds of approaches. And then we were being approached by companies that procure PPE for care homes, and they're saying, well, we need 200 5 litre jerry cans, please, and so it came to the point where it had to be a commercial thing. We had to charge for it, so we worked out the pricing, and we took a very it was really important to me that we weren't sort of making excessive amounts of money from people's misfortune, essentially.
Profiteering, as Boris calls it.
Yeah, and we've seen. I mean, we've been approached by people trying to sell hand sanitizer to us because we've put ourselves on some websites around helping COVID and stuff, and people have been trying to sell us 5 litres of hand sanitizer for like 150 quid, and we sell it for £16 plus VAT.
Wow.
And so it's been so important to me that what we did is we just found out what hand sanitizer cost way before COVID happened. So what was the everyday run of the mill when there was no demand on the product? What were people charging? And it was basically £15-16 ish for five litres, and so that's what we charge.
Amazing. And can you make enough out of that then to employ your team and to keep ticking over until normality returns? Or?
Well, I think the trick was that we're quite fortunate that we've got loads of space. So the fact that we can do it at scale means it works. If you're doing it on a very small scale, it's quite prohibitively expensive, especially when all the different ingredients are so in such high demand. So you need glycerol and hydrogen peroxide and certain denaturing chemicals, all of which have prices because everyone's after them. So you're kind of at the mercy of the supply chain. And actually, that's been most of my job in sitting here in my bedroom as we speak, has been just trying to get hold of things which aren't ludicrously expensive.
Unlike the government, presumably you can't send a military jet to Turkey to pick up your ethanol, I'm guessing.
No, exactly. I had to use my bloody private one, didn't
Excellent.
Um,
But you have been able to get sort of consistency of supply all the way through.
yeah, it's been not too bad, and also the core ethanol as well has been really hard to get hold of. So a combination of everyone's workforce being at home, their supplies in being disrupted, much more demand has meant that just getting hold of the ethanol was a real challenge. So we've had to go out to many. We normally buy from one distillery, and had to go out to all kinds of things. We even brought down a tanker from um, William Grant, the Scottish distillers. We've done all sorts of things to try and get hold of some. So yeah, it's been while the product is simple, the hand sanitizer is simple. It's simple to make. The logistics of doing it on any kind of scale in a pandemic is a headache.
Yeah, amazing. It must feel good though to have been able to pivot. It's kind of why I love this sector, I suppose, and the sort of creative entrepreneurial bunch that we are. It must be nice to be able to find a way to navigate, a way through this that keeps your business running and keep the team employed, but also to be doing some good at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing. It's been a crazy. I think from the moment that the pubs shut, I started on, and I slowly realised that the opportunity was in the hand sanitizer. There was about 2 to 3 weeks where it was a complete blur, and in that time was able to set up essentially a completely new business. So get all the processes, new equipment, find us, all the different suppliers of all the different ingredients, set them up. Meanwhile, trying to sort of make it and get it out the door as quickly as possible, because people were desperate for it. It was quite a bizarre process. And I remember speaking to my dad about it. And my dad lives in Norfolk, and I planned to go see him, and of course, that all happened. And that all was knocked on the head. And I said to him, "Yeah, this has just been crazy. I've just been working like a bit of a maniac since this all happened." And my dad said, "Well, to quote Dr. Johnson, he said, clarifies the mind nothing clarifies the mind better than a man knowing he's going to be hanged in the morning." I was like, yeah, it's still do or die, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting, I think, isn't it? As most of the country's been furloughed and getting some time off, and I've been absolutely sort of
Yeah,
mental busy
yeah.
throughout the whole process. And I feel sorry for my kids because you kind of look on and you go, oh, I'd really like to be hanging out with you, but fundamentally, we are completely financially up shit creek, and if I don't work my ass off to try and find a way to navigate through this, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah, I mean, it was quite. Yeah, it's quite literally a case of unless you find out a new strategy, or unless we get some kind of unless we work and find new opportunity, then people will be put on furlough and will be closing the doors.
yeah. How have your team therefore responded? I'm conscious that you've got some sort of, pretty trendy, funky people who love shaking up a cocktail and are obsessed by booze. Are they also loving the sort of the
Yeah,
dream of making sanitizer?
yeah. So, telling that person that he has to add denaturants to alcohol? Yeah, it's broke his heart. Um, so initially we had a couple of people who had to be home. Someone has been furloughed because they can't physically get into work because they've got a child to look after. And we had about 2 weeks where a few people couldn't come in. But to be honest, we just kept paying them as normal, and we thought, well, this will come out of the wash, and we'll be able to have them back as soon as they're able. Everyone's role has been completely flipped on its head. So we've had someone who's sort of head of sales and sort of account management, so would have come into your bar and met you and talked about gin, is now warehouse manager on sanitizer production, and she's loving it.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I think everyone realizes that the alternative is being furloughed, or as my cousin and all various people I know who've just been straight out made redundant. So I think it's the lesser evil. And while furlough is absolutely brilliant, it's fantastic for employers, and it's incredible for employees. It is, no one wants to be at home and told they can't do their job. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased and proud that we've got a team of, how many people we've got over there now? We've got 1, 2, four, sometimes five. Keeping the gin bottling going, and then in jerry cans and what have you. We've got two separate buildings, so we've kind of split the business in two, really.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it's funny what people will do now that, they can't do their dream job. I had a couple of my team in on Friday and Saturday night where we launched our first drive-through restaurant. And these are kind of, really good quality head chefs who could be cooking in sort of, Michelin-starred restaurants if they chose to be. And fundamentally, we were selling fish and chips out of a car park in Boscombe. And it was funny to kind of look at their dreams and aspirations for what they wanted to do and the reality of what we were doing. But it was kind of like, that's been the good thing that's come out of this, I guess, is that sense of community and whatever it takes, and we just muck in.
Yeah. Really cool.
Do you qualify then, apart from the furlough scheme, as a retailer in that set? Did you qualify for any other government support, any kind of grants and stuff like that, or would you literally have been on your Todd?
I don't think so. So we're for the grant perspective, which is linked to your rates. I don't think we are applicable. We were told by the rates company that we weren't. I'm not sure that's totally true, and I think we're going to try another go at that, because with this strange sort of gap. Like if you look at all the rules around those that help, it never mentions manufacturing, which is really interesting. And we are a manufacturer that's completely linked to hospitality and retail. If hospitality and retail turn off, so does all of our customers. So I think there is grounds for us to make an application for the grant. We've literally this morning we applied for the bounce back loan, which I think is a brilliant scheme, which I would recommend for any business. But no, apart from everything else, as I say, we've used the furlough scheme for someone who has to be at home to look after their kid because they can't find any childcare, obviously. But apart from that, no, that's it.
Okay, well, I slip through the net of most things as well. My rateable value is too high because 51k is the cut-off, so I don't qualify for any of the grants.
Too high?
We're too big. So yeah, basically, 51k is the cut-off, so you need to be between 15 and 51k. If you're over 51k, you don't qualify for any grants. So I don't qualify for any grants, and I'm too big to apply for the bounce back loan. So we've got a CBILS application in with NatWest, but they're not particularly motivated.
I didn't realise there was a cap on the bounce back.
Yeah, there's a big campaign running called Raise the Bar, which is to apparently 71% of hospitality businesses don't qualify for the grant because their rateable values are too high, basically. And I'm not entirely sure of what the logic is to have that as a cut-off, because obviously, one of my urban garden down in the town centre, the rateable value is 53k. So whether it was 50 or 53, equally as affected by the business. And I suppose there's got to be a cut-off somewhere, although I don't really know why there has, because if you're paying $500,000 in rateable value a year, you're only chucking more money into the exchequer, exchequer and the coffers, and therefore a 25k grant may be less helpful at that point. But certainly at my level, 25k per venue would have been exceptionally helpful. But hey ho, maybe that will get changed in time. One of the things sort of I'm conscious of in the last couple of years is there's been this huge growth in the sort of craft distiller market. What's your thoughts of what's going to happen after this? Do you think, certainly in hospitality for me, I can see that a lot of bars and a lot of restaurants are going to go under in the next 6 months, unfortunately. And I think there was an oversupply in the market in some way. And I would hope that it would be, for me personally, I'd hope it would be some of the sort of national chains that I love less, and I don't think care about hospitality in quite the same way, although I'm concerned actually it'll be the smaller players that disappear. But how about in the drinks production market? What's your feel for, will a lot of those craft distillers survive, or are people going to struggle to get through this, do you think?
Well, to give you a bit of an insight into the craft gin, craft distillery thing, so in 2019, we definitely felt the effect of a hugely overcrowded market. So we were speaking to wholesalers, like the sort of people who supply you your drinks, and they've got 1,000 gins, on their books between all the different flavors and all the different suppliers. And so certainly I heard from a couple of buyers, head buyers for these wholesalers, that the sort of London style dry gin style of gin is in decline within their portfolio. So there's just too many gins so like our Dorset Dry, for example, that kind of style, for the demand. Then we had Brexit, which was brutal on our business as well. So we really felt that from a perspective of we had to, we held on to 6 months of bottles that we get in from Italy. So we had to hold on to all this stock, held up loads of money. And then we had the general election in December, which caused everyone to forget about Christmas until the 21st of December. So basically, well before COVID even happened, the craft distilling sort of market in the UK was brutal. We found it, we noticed it, Brexit and general busyness. So for then in March for COVID to come around, I generally thought, wow, this is really serious. This could be really serious for us. So I've absolutely no doubt that unless some craft distilleries have been able to pivot and do something different, or have got some, investment, or they've saved some money over the years, that it's going to be really tough because it's like the perfect storm of what we in sort of year 8, 9 of a gin revolution. So there's loads of brands, plus a grotty year last year with Brexit, and then this. So I think so. I think it will put a big dent in the big boys, and it will cause some, hopefully not fatal, but some serious issues for us smallies as well.
So hopefully the opportunity is, I guess, if you can pivot as you have done and survive this, you come out the other side and things look a little bit rosier if there's less competition. Although that leads into my question: what's your prediction and thoughts around the hospitality sector? There's been a lot of press in the last week about physical distancing and the sort of, it makes most restaurants unviable to operate. Have you given that any thought?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it will take a long time, I think, for it to be prized out of people's psyche. Myself, if Southbourne was to open up overnight, I'm not sure how quickly I'd go down there and ram into a busy pub. It's interesting, isn't it? So even if
interesting's a good word. Yeah.
So it's a funny one. So it will be that kind of how long it will take for people to go back to normal. What the new normal will look like as well. Like I think people will be sanitizing their hands and staying. I think we'll start seeing people walking around with masks on, even well outside of this pandemic. Things like that.
Is that why you're applying to be able to make sanitizer on a long-term basis? You think this impact is going to be sustained and that will help? Or?
Yeah, I think that's purely because it's just not going to turn off. So I think we'll be doing this for the next year. And we're a proper bona fide business, and there's no reason why we shouldn't just apply for the licenses anyway. I just think that will be part of Conker going forward, I'd imagine. I can't see it.
It's great. It's a great. I mean, it's greatly branded and a great product and stuff like that as well. So we'll be ordering some. Would you be more inclined, hypothetically, if you knew any seafront restaurateurs, Rupert? Do you think you'd be more inclined to go and get a takeout on the beach than go to your local pub on the high street?
That would definitely be my preferred option.
Just making a note of that, Rupert. I'm expecting.
I say that about the kind of there would be that nervousness around how long it would take to think, I'm happy to go back into a bar or restaurant. But there's also motivation because everyone's going to be thinking, let's go and support. So there's a fine line, isn't there, between going out and support and then everyone getting over their whole kind of, everyone's going to have bloody Stockholm syndrome, aren't they? And stay indoors and be like, yeah, this is my captive. Let's stay here and let's order in. I don't know. That's the worry.
Yeah. I think it's the reality. I think it's why the industry is saying, look, we employ over 3 million people, and if you turn off furlough instantaneously overnight and say, look, the government support is not there anymore because you are allowed to open.
Okay, yeah.
The reality is there's a national health emergency, and it doesn't matter if you say we can open, but we've got to follow physical distancing. One is businesses are unviable with those sort of rules in place, and two is the public aren't going to want to go and sit in an enclosed space, crowded around a bar, because they're not going to have that perception that it's healthy to do so. So I think we're all having to look to innovate. We're quite lucky to have access to some outside space, in a couple of our venues at least, so that might help. But we're also looking at home delivery and frozen food and all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, it's a tough time for the sector as a whole, which is a shame because for me, hospitality is, the point of being on planet Earth. It's your birthdays, anniversaries. It's where you meet your partners. It's your date nights. It's kind of, that's where the fun of humanity and the music and the clinking of glasses and even, the outside events we talked of, that is humanity basically, isn't it? So to see it disappear is terrifying, but hopefully we can get a little bit more support. I don't think the industry is asking for a huge amount. It just needs some relief for some taxes, so sort of a bit of a break with the HMRC for a little while. We need to renegotiate pretty fast with landlords because we pay huge amounts of rents in hospitality, and no money in just means that you can't pay those. So the expectations aren't crazy demanding. It's not just about government handouts, but it's going to take a year to 2 years of some sort of clever approach so that we can come out the other side, I guess.
Yeah, I think it'll all probably pin on a vaccine. I think as soon as that is available, that will make people relax. Because I'd like to think that myself and my wife and children aren't at risk. My mum and dad and their friends, they all are, and so I would certainly be so cautious of going back into normal social behaviour while there still isn't a vaccine, because while I might have a terrible, flu, it could have serious implications for the people I know and love. And yeah, I think that will be the game changer. Having the vaccine available will mean the most vulnerable will be protected, and we can get back to some kind of normality.
Yeah, well, that'll be nice.
Breweries, so I'd love seeing Way Out Back Brewery get on the case with their canning machine and doing their beer delivery and all the food delivery stuff. Like I love the idea of all your chefs wearing hoodies in car parks, just dodgy dealing lasagnas. It's cool. I think just seeing the businesses pivot and like good example, I've seen people with access to 3D printers. Like a friend of mine's been printing masks, and a friend of mine's been printing like ear protectors for face masks. So where you apply your fabric face masks, right where it goes around the back of the ears, apparently that causes real grief if you're wearing that all day. And he's created this plastic insert which basically takes the pressure off the back of the ear. Like, that's so cool. That's innovation and a problem that no one would have thought existed. He's solved. So yeah, people are on it.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it? It's nice to see just how responsive we can be, I suppose. And there is this desire not to go back to, life fully as normal, if normal means the race, the sort of corporate cutthroat race to globalization and the domination of big brands and stuff like that. It's been nice to see people's creativity. And if we can sustain a little bit of that independence and community spirit coming out the other side, then hopefully the world will be better.
I've loved the empty skies as well. Empty skies, no planes, quiet roads. Like I've been after bicycle rides with my little 4-year-old girl, and we've been cycling on the road, all quiet. It's like being in the 1950s. There's no. It's like the amount of noise and transport has disappeared, and there's something really nice about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, there's definitely some good sides that come out of it. Okay, well, look, congratulations on finding a way through and navigating through, Rupert. It's good to catch up and get some detail behind what looked like a mountain of plastic bottles. So where should people go if they want to follow what's going on, or if they want to order any product? And remember that you do actually still sell beautiful gin, and they should probably drink some booze as well. Where's the best place to go and keep track of what's going on?
Well, we've got some incredibly exciting Instagram and Facebook pages. So just search Conker Spirit. But if you go onto our website, conkerspirit.co.uk, there's a code there, discount code for 20% off all our spirits. So if you need your spirits lifting while you're locked inside, that's the place to go.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll put a link through on the show notes for the website as well, and sort that out. But yeah, thank you, Rupert, for joining me. Really good, and good luck. And I'm sure if you do get some downside once you've nailed the production process of sanitizer, you'll have some creativity space. And I look forward to seeing what you come out with for summer 2021. If it's too late for 2020, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to talking booze again.
Yeah, nice. All right. Thanks, mate.
All right. All the best, Mark. Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed that chat. Personally, I found it amazing that Rupert and his team have produced over 30,000 litres of sanitizer, and hats off to him for nailing the complexity in production techniques, sourcing ingredients, bottling, and not least of all, motivating his booze-loving team to actually deliberately have to make spirits taste awful. I know some of his crew and how heartbreaking they would have found that. Now, if you could spare a minute to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player of choice and click on the 5-star review, or even write a few words on Apple Podcasts, that would be amazing and really helps the algorithms to keep giving this podcast some exposure. Thank you so much for your support, and please do sign up for our weekly newsletter or get in touch via humansofhospitality.co.uk, and I will have another episode out within the week. Cheers.